what we're doing. So certainly if you have any issues, just do a quick chat if you're having any technical issues, and we'll try to take care of that as we go. But today, what we're going to talk about is comfort foods. And really in this pandemic era, we really are at home more. We're cooking more, which is great. I love to hear that from my clients. But we want to also indulge. We want to have those comfort foods. So that's where Julie and I started talking. It's like, why not now? Like, let's help people enjoy life, but do it nutritionally and healthfully. So that's what I'd like to share. My passion is in nutrition. That's where my expertise is. And that's what I'll be sharing today as we go. And in regards to Julie, what would you like to share?
Thanks, Cindi. Yeah, I know we've talked about this. I'm very excited about this venture that we're embarking on. And over the years, I've experienced inflammation, adrenal, and hormonal issues, and had to make adjustments to my food choices. And whenever I was, or ever I am tempted to or want to eat sugary and gluten-laden treat, I always have to ask myself, if I do this, I'm going to pay the consequences. And more times than not, I say, okay, I'm going to pay the consequences. So I have learned I have to be careful. And during these times right now, we all want more comfort foods in our life. And I know Cindi and I have talked about how we can create healthier versions that still taste really good. We're not losing the taste quality. And so I always say it doesn't have to be complicated to be comforting. And that's basically what we're here to show you today, is how we can make these comfort foods taste great and be healthy for you.
Absolutely. And I think that's really important, is that it's simple, that's affordable, and it's tasty and delicious. So that's what we plan to bring you today. So what can you expect? So as we talked about, here we're in a pandemic, we're staying at home more. So how can we live our quarantine life with guilt-free comfort foods? We're going to help you kind of learn through these different recipes. So I know several of you already mentioned on the initial that you didn't have your recipes in front of you. That's okay. Hopefully you have a notebook and you can keep your notes, because we're going to talk through a lot. So as Julie is walking us through these recipes, I'm going to be asking a lot of questions. Like, why did you choose this? And what's the purpose of this? Because I'm the science around nutrition. Like, how can we optimize our nutrition and do it pleasantly? Julie is art and science in regards to the actual recipes. So we're going to talk about optimizing nutritional impact for our immunity and our overall health. What are some ingredient swaps? So as a general rule, both of these recipes are going to hit the majority of folks in regards to your nutritional needs. They're anti-inflammatory, so they're going to really support most chronic conditions, most nutritional plans. There are some offshoots, like a low FODMAP or a low histamine diet. There may be a few additional swaps. We might talk about that today, but if not, and you're on those plans, reach out and we can share with you what those swaps would be. So what are these recipes not? They don't have gluten or grains. There's no cow dairy, there's no eggs, and there's not tons of sugar. What do they include? Nutritious plants, phytonutrients. So what we know about ill health is it's driven by inflammation. And what drives inflammation is oxidative stress. We're exposed to that in our environment, in our lives, day in and day out. Our phytonutrients coming from the colorful plants of the rainbow neutralize that. Fiber, really important for gut health, elimination, which is one of the main ways to detoxify our body, as well as hormone balancing, healthy fats, and flavor and enjoyment. So what we're going to do, we're going to at the end have a Q&A session. I want to bring everyone back up. I think it's fun to have the Brady Bunch on screen. And so use your reactions with your thumbs up for a question, and you can unmute yourself at that time to ask, but jot your questions down, because we do want to continue through the class and then answer the questions at the end. And Julie's got some simple hacks.
Yes, I do. First thing, whenever you're doing any type of cooking or baking, you're looking at a recipe, I highly suggest reading a recipe at least 2 or 3 times, just to get an idea of what's involved and what are the steps. How much time is it going to take? Do I need to prep something ahead of time and wait a long And in French, there's a term called mise en place, which is basically gathering all your ingredients to set them up, set in place. And basically what you want to do is get all your ingredients together, wet ingredients, dry ingredients, measure them out, put them in the appropriate bowls. You want to find whatever pans, pots, baking sheets, utensils you're going to need, and get all of that ready to go. Then you'll have more time efficiency in the kitchen, and you won't come to a step in the recipe and say, oh, I have to do this and wait an hour, and then part of your recipe can be ruined from that. So it's a great, efficient way to manage a recipe. Store-bought versus homemade mixes. This is always a good question too, and I've fought with this myself over the years. Store-bought mixes are really great if you want convenience and don't want to deal with measuring out different flours, and you're in a time crunch. Homemade mixes, you have a little more control over what the taste is going to be like. You can try different bean flours with grain flours, with starch flours. You can work on the ratios a little more than you would be able with a store-bought. The taste will change, and you can actually probably make a better tasting flour mix if you make your own. There are some good ones out there, but it depends on what you're going to use it for. The cost differential, though, can be not too significant, but it depends on what the flours are. After I priced it out, I found there was probably about $1.90 to about $3.75 difference. It was more expensive per cup of flour than if you were to make your own. So I opt to make my own most of the time, because this way I have a whole bunch on hand in the refrigerator ready to go at any given time. So if I have a craving for cookies or something like that that I want to make, I just go to the fridge, grab my flour, it's ready to go, and I don't have to worry about it. Flax seeds versus chia or egg replacers. Chia seed and flax seed are very different in texture, and they have a high nutritional value. So I like using those more than egg replacer, which is mostly starches. You can find that in the store. I think it's Bob's Red's Mill that has that. So out of the flax and the chia eggs, I prefer the flaxseed eggs for my baking purposes, just because it's a smoother texture, and it still gives you nutritional value, but you don't taste it as much. Chia pudding would be great for chia eggs, but flaxseed is my go-to for these. It's a great binder. It hasn't failed me yet, and just don't try making scrambled eggs out of it. That will not work. No need for timely rising of pizza crust. I love making dough. I love to see it rise. There's something about it that is just so cathartic, but honestly, when you're making pizza, you don't want to spend the time doing that. And this pizza crust recipe actually is really good. You don't have to rise it at all. It's ready in like 15 minutes, and pizza can be on the table within half an hour. It's wonderful. I absolutely love it. So with that said, I'm going to take a minute here to go to my little workshop behind me, and we're going to start going through these recipes.
Great.
All right. Oh, I have to get one thing out of the refrigerator.
All right. Good thing we're in the kitchen.
I know.
Okay, so we're starting with the pancakes, guys.
All right. So we are going to be starting with pancakes today. And here is a perfect example of what I mean by mise en place. And if you look over here, I have my wet ingredients here, dry. I've got my flaxseed eggs and the blueberries, and everything I'm going to need to put this recipe together. All right, so pancakes. Who doesn't like a fluffy pancake? We all love them. Buttermilk, rich, yummy. I mean, we crave those. But let's face it, when you take gluten and eggs out of a recipe, the fluffy factor disappears. And that's been a very difficult thing to replicate. So after this paleo vegan challenge that I've been presented with, I'm new to this culinary term. I've been practicing and have worked on this recipe for a little bit. I've gone through maybe 13 or 14 renditions of it. I've taken out ingredients, put some in, see what works, what doesn't work. That's the mad scientist part that I actually love to do. So today I'm going to show you how to create a pancake that actually tastes good. My family loves them. They're actually good cold. You can make them ahead of time, keep them in the refrigerator. You can eat them throughout the week if you want, if they last that long. So let's go ahead and get started. And if you have your recipes out, great. If not, you can always take some extra notes.
Hey,
So
Julie,
what we're going yeah.
before we start, can you make a mention, because what we have on your recipes is your standard measurements, like a half a cup, a tablespoon. You have a really scientific answer behind why would you use grams, like weigh your ingredients versus having that cup or tablespoon, which is a lot easier.
Thank you for bringing that up. When I was trained, we measured everything in grams versus the US system. And using the metric in grams is a very precise way of getting an accurate and consistent product every single time you make it. And it'll allow you to double, triple, make the same recipe 50 times in quantity, and it'll still be the same product. If you can try this later on. If you take a half a cup and measure half a cup of flour, and then you put on a gram scale and see how many grams it is, you do that 10 times, I guarantee you more times than that, each time it's going to be a different weight. So you multiply that by a large number, your total recipe for that large batch is not going to be the same thing as if you were to do it for one recipe. So I always prefer measuring everything in grams. And for you, I put this all in regular US measurements, but I'm happy to provide the gram equivalents after this if you're interested in receiving those.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, so basically what we're gonna do, I already went ahead and made the flaxseed eggs ahead of time, because when you make flaxseed eggs, you just take the flax seeds and the water, let it sit for about 10 to 15 minutes. And as you can see, they actually become like the consistency of whisked eggs. This is exactly what you want. So you just kind of give it a little stir just to kind of make sure everything is nice and combined. Then we're going to take our flour. I already mixed everything up. Actually, what I'm going to do, because what I want to do is show you how one of these actually cooks. I'm going to turn the pan on and get that heated up in the meantime. While I'm heating that up, I'm going to put just a little bit of coconut oil. I like the coconut oil for the taste. It does not need a lot. And you just kind of let it melt. So that'll be ready by the time we are finished combining this. All right, back to putting this together.
And can I add one little point about the coconut oil?
Of course.
So it is a saturated fat, and there's two different kinds that you can find in the store: refined or unrefined virgin coconut oil. The difference is that refined is more for higher heat, so about 400 degrees and up, whereas virgin is a little bit lower heat, so medium heat, about 350. So it really depends on what type of heat you need it for. And the concept of like refined is like, we shouldn't be doing anything refined, right? Because it's processed and you use chemicals in processing. But there are some natural companies out there that do not use chemicals in that refinement. And the refining actually has a little bit less coconut taste, because some people just don't like the coconut taste. If you're doing the extra virgin, it's going to be more coconutty. So just keep that in mind.
That's good to know. I didn't realize that. Thank you.
You bet.
And also, just another note on top of that, I know that ghee is allowed on some of these diets. We actually tried cooking with ghee, but it does not do well in high heat, so we decided not to use that at all.
Good point. Good point. Thank you.
All right. So what we're going to do now, this is the almond milk and the peanut and the almond butter and the sweetener. I put the sweetener with the liquids because it dissolves, and then it'll sweeten up the mixture here. So I'm going to dump all of this into our dry. And then I'm going to take our flax seeds, mix them up, and pour them in here as well. Okay. Then I'm going to take our other spatula and just literally start mixing it around. The nice thing about non-wheat or gluten-free flours, you can never really overmix them. If you use regular wheat, if you overmix the flour, your product is going to get really hard, dense, and stiff. It's not going to be light and fluffy. So here, this has come together really well. Go to the bottom of the bowl and make sure all the flour and everything is mixed up in here. Now what we're going to do is take our blueberries. I've used fresh and frozen, and all the times I've tried this, I really like the fresh ones better, but the frozen ones work perfectly well. So just gently go ahead and fold these in here.
The frozen probably makes your batter a little bit purple, doesn't it?
It depends. Sometimes it will, yes. So if you like purple pancakes, go for it. But yeah, it'll work out fine. It's not going to affect the taste. It'll just affect the color. All right, so this consistency is actually pretty good. Sometimes it may be a little thinner. And if it is, let it set for a little bit until it becomes about this consistency. This is really nice because then the pancake will set up pretty well. All right, let's go back to our pan and see if we're heated here. So I have it on medium heat. Actually, it looks pretty high right now, but on medium heat. And we're going to take a 1/4 cup measure, and we're going to go ahead and scoop a pancake. And put it right in here. Just go ahead and plop it in. And then do another one. Sorry you can't smell it. It smells pretty good. All right, so what we're gonna do is just let it cook on medium for a little bit until the edges become dry. We're not gonna see bubbles necessarily. You'll see some on the edges, but I think part of that is due to the fact that the almond butter is a little denser, so it has a harder time coming through. In the meantime, what I want to talk to you about is some of these recipes. This is the paleo flour that we tried in the beginning. It's Bob's, and on his recipe in the back, we actually tried this recipe. It calls for eggs, but we didn't use the eggs. We used the flax eggs. So we used this with flax eggs, and we used our own paleo mixture with flax eggs. We tried it, and it was inedible because it had no structure and no color. It just was the most unappetizing thing. So that's why almond butter or pumpkin or something else has been added to these to show some kind of substance to it and hold it together. And the other thing you may want to do with these store-bought mixes, if the recipe calls for water, try replacing with oat milk or almond milk because it gives a lot more flavor to the actual product. That's what we always do. If it calls for like a teaspoon of vanilla, up it another teaspoon. You can never have too much vanilla in some of these things, especially when there's no eggs, because the eggs also provide a lot of flavor and we're missing that. So let's go ahead and check these and see how these are doing. They're starting right here around the edges here. You can see that they're starting to get dry. So we want to go ahead and start loosening them just a little bit. And we'll get there. This one's almost ready. We'll let that go another couple minutes. And the nice thing about having your own flours, I've tried like cassava flour in the paleo, I've tried the oat flour and the different starches. And I like the almond flour as the main component because it's a sweeter, nuttier taste. Cassava can work, but it requires a lot of moisture in a recipe, which makes it a little more dense. So trying to find these balances between almond, cassava, coconut becomes more of a science project to see what ratios work out best. And I have come up with a couple versions that we've been using, and I'm always going to be working on more. And I'm happy to share some of those with you as well afterwards if you're interested in that. So let's go back to the pancake. And I think we're ready to turn this one. 1, 2, 3. There we go.
Nice.
Now this one held together really well. They have been. The blueberries haven't burst. They're going to be nice and juicy. And so just go ahead and cook this another 2 or 3 minutes until it's done. Then you can just take it out of here and eat it right away. Put it in a container, store it for a couple days, whatever you want to do, and it's ready to go. And then when you're done with all of them, you have a plate of pancakes for breakfast. You can put strawberries or whatever other fruit you want, almond butter, and I know Cindi will probably have some other ideas as well. What you can do with these. Yes, Cindi?
Yep, we'll talk about that after you finish your tutorial. So yes.
Okay, fabulous.
So that looks great. And a couple other things that we had talked about is one thing that Julie has in this recipe is monk fruit sweetener, not the extract. So there's 2 different types. So the monk fruit sweetener I'm going to show you that. Let me show you. I'll just show you now. It comes in a bag like this. So there is sugar alcohol, erythritol in here. So if it's a small dosage, like here is just 1 teaspoon, that will work fine. I know Julie tried a pudding recipe with this, and so it was about 3/4 cup, and that does not go well digestively.
No, it does not.
Too much sugar alcohol can be very cramping to the GI system. So just keep that in mind. The extract, because also the nice thing about the monk fruit sweetener is it's a 1-to-1 ratio. So if it calls for a tablespoon of sugar, then you can use a tablespoon of monk fruit sweetener. So it's really easy as a 1-to-1, whereas the extract is an extract. It's more concentrated, so it's a much smaller amount. So if you need a lot more sugar, use the extract, because you just got to use that differentiation of how much to use, because you'll use a lot smaller amount. And then one note about the cornstarch-free baking powder. So corn can be quite inflammatory, so that's why we advise cornstarch-free. There's only one brand that we have found out in the market, which is Pamela's. So there's a brand called Pamela's out there. So if you want the convenience of finding something in the stores, you may have to get it online too, because that is going to be more of a specialized brand. Otherwise, Julie did provide how she prepared it at home.
Right, and it's actually very easy to prepare. I gave the recipe on the recipes themselves, and I'm happy to go through that again later if you want to, but it's something I have on hand now all the time. Very easy, it's just 3 ingredients, and it works perfectly fine.
Excellent.
All right, so we're getting set up for the pizza now. And again, the mise en place. I think I have everything. All right, so I took all the dry ingredients, mixed it all up in here. The little flecks are all the spices you can see. Easiest way to mix this all together is a whisk. Best way to do it versus putting it through a sifter. This way you get all the lumps out. All right, in here we have the warm water, olive oil, and here are our flax seeds. So again, we're going to mix those up, give them a little stir, and they've coagulated quite nicely. Now we're going to add all this to the dry. Scrape out every little last bit of leaven here. Same with the flax, eggs. All right, this is going to get just a little sticky, and it's okay. It's pizza dough. We're supposed to have fun with it. Get your aggressions out on it. All right, make sure you have on hand a bowl of tapioca starch on hand, just in case this gets a little sticky. Then you can reach in and get it off your hands and work it a little bit more. So what we're going to do is mix this all up until it creates a nice ball of dough, or at least as close to it as possible. And just get in there and mush it, and all the liquid will eventually go into the flours. There we go. Once this is done, we're going to knead it for probably not even a couple of minutes, just so it's all put together nicely. So what I'm going to do, this seems a little on the wet side, and that's okay. I'm going to take a little starch. We're going to throw it onto our cutting board. And actually, this is coming into a ball pretty nicely. It's not so bad. So what we're going to do, you can see part of it's falling apart, and that's okay. It's a little sticky, but just go ahead and put a little flour on the board. Now to knead it, use the palm of your hand, push down, pick it up, turn it 1/4 of the way, bring it over, push down again. So we're going to do this a couple of times. I'm going to put just a little more starch on here. It's a little wet. Push down with your palm, turn it 1/4 of the way, down with the palm, keep turning it. So you can see this is coming together nicely, and we now have a ball of dough. Perfect. All right, that's what we want. So now what we're going to do, we're going to cut this in half. And we're going to put 1/2 in the bowl so we can use that for later. Now, if you have your recipe printed out, you have to forgive me, because when I was writing this out, I was still experimenting with this and the different steps. And when I made this last night, I'm like, oh, well, this is an easier way of doing this. So for steps 9 and 10, what I want you to do, when you have the ball of dough, grab a piece of parchment paper, put it down on your board. You're going to take a little bit of starch, sprinkle it on the paper, take your ball of dough, put it on the floured parchment paper, take another piece of parchment paper and put it on top. Best way to flatten this is a rolling pin. And you can roll it to whatever shape you want. And turn it around, because here you can see it's an oval. You want to make it more round. And we're going to roll this to about 1/8 of an inch. The first thing I have to mention, first of all, this recipe comes to you via Sabrina's Sinless Secrets. And I have to thank Sabrina. When I was trying to find a recipe for this, I found one online and I tried it and I said, oh my God, this actually works. My family loved it so much. They said, do not change anything in this recipe. So that's like a first that never happens. So I'm happy to share Sabrina's secret of this amazing crust with you. But this is an amazing recipe, very easy to deal with. And she says you can go to 1/8 inch or 1/4 inch. I like the 1/8 inch better because when you bake it, it gets nice and crisp. If you keep it at 1/4 inch, it gets a little doughy and just a little different feel. So I would recommend going to an 1/8 inch crust. So with that said, let's continue rolling. And we're going to continue here. We're getting there. And you can check it. All right, and if any of this ever tears apart while you're doing this or putting it onto the pan, it's a very forgiving dough, and you can piece it together by pressing it however you want. All right, I think we'll do one more, and then we're going to transfer it over. All right, I think that's a little more. Okay. So you can see here we're about 1/8 of an inch. It's pretty thin, which is what you want. Easiest way to transfer this is to pick up the whole thing, bring it over to your pizza stone or pizza pan, and take off the top. Move a little bit here. There we go. All right. So now what you can do is press this until, if there's a little high area here, let's go ahead and press that out and see it's coming apart, but you just push it together and it comes together very nicely. All right, the same thing here. I'm just gonna push. This is a little hot area. We're just gonna push it together. There we go. All right, so basically, when you have the shape you want, whether it's a circle or a rectangle, bake this in the oven for about 15 minutes, and you'll want it to look golden brown when it's done. So let me show you what it actually looks like when you want it taken out of the oven. So when it's done, this is what it should look like. You want it golden around the edges, slightly golden in the middle. This will hold up really well. When it comes out of the oven, you can put whatever toppings, sauce toppings you want, stick it back in the oven for 5 to 10 minutes, and you've got pizza. It's a really tasty, hearty crust. I don't think it'll disappoint you. So that is our take on pizza and pancakes. And I forgot to mention too, for the pancakes, we can talk about this later. Our daughter's actually on the low histamine diet right now, so I had to come up with another version for her. And I created a pumpkin version of the pancake. So I'm happy to share that with you as well later on. I can tell you what to swap out for the ingredients to make it a low histamine pancake. So that is it for our demo. And Cindi, back to you.
Awesome. And that sounds extremely tasty and moist to use the pumpkin. And I think,
yes.
And I apologize if I missed, Jules, is with on the pizza, I know on step 7, if you have your recipe, I think we had in there to knead it for 8 minutes.
Yeah, and it's supposed to, I was making bread and my 8 and 2 minutes got mixed up between the recipes, so that was totally my mistake.
You only need 2 minutes, which is much
only
better.
not even.
Not even.
Pretty much. Yeah, just pretty much just like, a couple minutes, just, kneading it back and forth like we did here, and then you should be good.
Great. Awesome. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and switch back over to our screen show share. Hang on one second. And what we're going to do now is go through some of the nutritional boosts. So can everyone see me? Wanted to talk about some of the nutritional boosts that you can do for your pizza. And so what I have over here are a few different things. So you can get just tomato sauce or a marinara sauce, or there are pizza sauces out there if you want to get really creative if you can't do tomato. One thing about canned tomatoes or any type of processed tomatoes, higher in lycopene, which is good for prostate, which would be men that are not on the call right now, or they are also higher in mold. So most companies tend to use moldy tomatoes when they're processing them to put it into a can. So what I do, it's still easier than canning my own. So I do go with the organic brands, and most of your organic brands are also going to be using BPA-free liners, which BPA is bisphenol A, that's an estrogen mimicker. It's a plastic. So we do want to watch the quality of what we're using. So you could use some form of a tomato puree, or again, if you want to get creative, I know Julie talked about using pumpkin in her pancakes. You can also use a pumpkin puree as your spread on the pizza dough. Or you could even try a pesto, so something a little bit different. And then remember we talked about phytonutrients. So the plants that are full of color that really assist in neutralizing the free radicals and the oxidative damage that we're creating all day long, just with normal metabolism. So I've got here in my little bowl of just a bunch of colorful vegetables. So we like to use a variety of different bell peppers. Purple onion is one of my favorites. Garlic is wonderful, fresh garlic cubed up on there. Any type of greens. So really load it up on your vegetable. And then black olives. You can put green, you can do Kalamata, you can do any type of olive, but really high in omega-3, so your anti-inflammatory fat. So very healthy fat to use. And then for the cheese, because you know that we've said no cow dairy. So one thing that I'm a big advocate of is sheep cheese or sheep-based dairy products. So this is Pecorino Romano. Comes in a wedge like this. You'll find it more in the specialty cheese area, but you can just grate up the cheese. It tastes really nice. If you were to take a block of it, it's pretty aged, but when you shred it, it tastes wonderful on pizza or tacos, whatever you want to make. So that would be a safe bet. And the reason why is, if you have lactose intolerance, it doesn't matter what source is coming from, whether it's a cow or a sheep or a goat, you're going to have lactose in all of those products. But if it's a matter of the casein, the type of protein, which is more common in regards to the inflammatory nature, there is the type of cows that we are raising in the United States produce a casein called A1, and that's a lot more inflammatory. Whereas sheep and goat are naturally producing an A2. And you may have seen the A2 cow milk in natural food stores. And that's why they've created a milk that's coming from a different breed of cow that's less inflammatory. If you have issues with cow dairy, a lot of times there's a cross reactivity with goat. That's why I tend to err towards sheep, because it's a lot cleaner, a lot safer in regards to tolerances. So that's my take on pizzas. So wonderful food for Friday nights. We do pizza night every Friday night. For our pancakes, so many different things that we can add to it. So a variety of fresh fruits. Here I've got blackberries or pomegranate seeds. The darker the color and the deeper the color, the more phytonutrients you have. So really opt for the deep, robust purples and reds and greens. You could also do yogurt, and this is a grain-free granola. So there's a lot of really easy grain-free granola recipes online. So it's really just nuts and seeds. or this is Purely Elizabeth. They do have just a couple varieties of prepared grain-free granola. This one's a coconut cashew. So super tasty. You don't need a lot, so you can just crumble a little bit for that texture. And again, for yogurts, because if we're trying to stay cow dairy-free, this is a coconut-based yogurt called Koyo. It can be a little bit difficult to source. Whole Foods used to carry it. I don't believe they are right now. Maybe they started again. I find this in our natural food store in our local neighborhood. And this has got nice probiotics, so your active live cultures, which is healthy for building our microbiome in our gut, which is what builds our metabolism and our ability to maintain and manage our weight. So when you go with a yogurt, there's also a Koyo that I like. That's more fermented. That's, either you like Koyo or Kokoyo. They're different consistency and texture. Do go with the natural or the plain flavors. When you go with any type of flavor, even vanilla or any type of flavor like strawberry or blueberry, you have a lot of sugar. So that really negates the benefit of building your microbiome and your healthy bacteria. Then we go into the different type of seeds. So adding a little bit of ground flaxseed, which is already in your pancake or in your pizza, hemp hearts, or chia seeds are a wonderful addition. We talked about fiber being really beneficial for hormone balancing, for gut health. You can even make a compote. So Julie used fresh blueberries in her mix. You can take 2 cups of frozen blueberries, do a tablespoon of your monk fruit, cover it, and put it in the microwave for 3 minutes. And now you've got that yummy compote that's not sugary, like if you go to a pancake house and you ask for some type of a fruit topping. So you can make your own a lot tastier. If you really want to be sinful, you could do a nut butter, like almond butter or sun butter, with maybe a couple slices of banana. And then we opt for the Lily's dark chocolate chips. So just a couple chocolate chips. So it makes you feel like you're in heaven, but you really haven't sinned. You've got some really anti-inflammatory nutrients with the almonds, and then with the Lily's, this is stevia sweetened. It also has inulin, which is a type of fiber. So you actually have fiber in your chocolate chips. So some different ways that you can power boost the nutritional impact of these awesome recipes that Julie just shared with us for pancakes. So a wonderful weekend breakfast, and then have leftovers, make more so that you have leftovers for the week, and then also for your pizza nights. So with that, let me go ahead and share my screen one more time. So one of our next steps that we want to share with you is some additional classes that we're going to have coming up. But first, we'd love for you to share or what you do with the recipes. Try the recipes out. Share with us if you made any adjustments or modifications and how it went, as well as what toppings did you put on it. So take photos and share with us. We'd love to see. And what was your audience evaluation? We're going to offer 2 additional series coming up. So one will be a continuation with Julie and I doing a guilt-free comfort food series. So we're going to look at cookies, muffins and quick breads, mac and cheese and hot dishes, especially for those Minnesotans, and toasting breads. And that will be 4 classes for $50. We'll probably be looking at the end of July to start that, because it's a lot of work. We met for an hour every single week, working through the operational aspect and making sure the nutritional piece was there. So it does take a lot of time, but we're really passionate about sharing our passions and our expertise with you and help you enjoy life at home as well. And then another class option that Brooke and I will be offering is superfoods. So we're going to be looking at smoothies and salads and bowls and stir fries. So how can we power punch our nutritional boost to support our immunity during this time, as well as our overall and general health? So please email me. I did email you all in regards to this class. So if you personally are interested in either of these, or you know somebody who would, please share with them as well. Let me know so that we have an idea of what that interest is, so that we can get the next steps planned and get you on the registration. And then last but not least, we're going to talk about questions and answers. So I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to put us back into calorie. That's pretty pertinent today with talking about food, but gallery view. So now we see most of you up here. Some of you have opted to keep your camera off. That's absolutely fine. What we want to do is go down to your reactions and click the thumbs up. So I just did that on my picture. And so select gallery view for you guys, for all of you as well, so that you can see each other. And then I'll call, I see 2 already raised your hand or thumbs up. So we'll go one by one, and I'll just have you unmute yourself. So everybody is still muted. So I just want you, as you ask your question, to unmute yourself. So Julia Carr, if you want to start with your question, if you want to unmute.
So which flours need to be stored in the fridge, and then what's the purpose behind that?
That's a good question. Nut flours particularly, because they have more oils in them, and keeping them in the refrigerator prevents them from going rancid any sooner. So
Okay.
yeah, I always store all my flour mixes in the refrigerator, and even my big bag of almond flour is always in the refrigerator.
Excellent. And Diane, I saw your hand go up. So you gotta unmute yourself. Unmute. Diane, you're muted. There we go.
Here I am. I don't think I had a question. I was probably just waving around.
Okay.
Hello,
That's all
everyone.
right. That's all right. Tiffany.
I'm not sure what I have for a question. I'm pretty happy with this setup.
Oh, good. Excellent. All right. How about Tiffany? You had your thumbs up.
No, I was just really excited by all this. I think this is such great information, and I'm like totally inspired by everything you've taught me tonight. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Oh, good. Excellent. So then let's do it one more time. So some of you are actually just doing like thumbs up for like you enjoyed the class. So if you enjoyed the class, you can do the clapping. If you do have a question, give me a thumbs up. So I know some of you had a thumbs up. Marnay.
When you were saying about the monk fruit and the blueberries, did you say that was with 2 cups of frozen blueberries or fresh blueberries?
2 cups of frozen, because that'll be better because it'll be softer. So that'll be like that true compote.
Okay. And then what did you say then? You let it sit for how long?
Nope. So you put 2 cups of frozen berries in a microwave bowl. Be sure you do that. I did not use the microwave bowl once.
Okay.
I won't do that again. 1 tablespoon of monk fruit sweetener.
Mm-hmm.
Cover it, and then you microwave for 3 minutes.
Okay.
And so then that will make it nice because it'll start to break down. So then you just stir it. So you'll have a little bit of the blueberry chunks, but it will be more of that compote that just kind of drizzles over your pancake.
Okay.
Other questions? Jody?
Took me a second to find my unmute button. I thought this class was really cool because I know for the last few years I've had a significant soy allergy, and I found some other things starting to bother me. So one, I'm super excited to see Julie anytime anyways. But it was great, and actually my pizza dough will be ready for dinner tonight.
Yay!
Awesome.
So
Let us know how you fill it up, like what you add at the top.
Well, I just, I went to the store and I bought all the regular stuff. I bought, mozzarella cheese, and because I didn't know what the dough was going to taste like. So I wanted it to at least be somewhat familiar. I didn't want to totally go off the deep end all at once, but I'm really excited, and I can't wait to try it. And happy belated birthday to me.
Thank you.
It was Julie's birthday yesterday. Happy birthday.
Thank you. Jody, I want to add to that too, with the pizza. we were trying to figure out what do we put on here. And before we did the low histamine, we were able to put the tomato sauce. We made our own, obviously no sugar, just spices and oil, and put lots of veggies, spinach, mushrooms, green peppers. But the cheese, that was the next thing. We used, Cindi had suggested the Daya brand, mozzarella, and we put just a little bit on that. We haven't tried the Pecorino Romano yet. I'm sure that would be fantastic on it. But the Daya mozzarella, just a little bit, was actually very good, and everybody loved it. So it's another option.
I got some fresh mozzarella to go with the spinach and the mushrooms and the onion and the garlic and all the other millions of things.
It'll be delicious.
Yeah, if you haven't seen Daya, they have, and it has a wide variety. So it is dairy free. They've got shreds, they've got slices, they've got blocks, they've got cream cheese. They've got a wide variety of options, and they've been around now for a little while. So it does taste a lot better, and it melts pretty good.
It does melt pretty well. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Well, happy pizza night. And then Julie, the other Julie, I think we have another Julie on the call. I thought I saw a thumbs up. So if you have a question, if you would like to unmute.
I was just clapping.
Great.
Yeah, love the classes and very interested in taking some more classes.
Wonderful.
Yeah,
Yes.
I need to start cooking. I've been doing Sunbasket, and I think tomorrow is my last shipment, and then I'm just continuing it, and I want to try to figure out how to do this without having meal plans sent to the house.
And it doesn't have to take a whole lot of time and energy. So awesome.
Yeah. So thank you. Yeah, I really enjoyed this.
Good. So were there other, please use your thumbs up if you have another question, because I saw a few. Julia.
Would potato starch work in instead of tapioca in terms of preventing stickiness, or is tapioca the best between the two?
It's also a good question as well. Tapioca, potato, it took me a little while to kind of figure those out. Tapioca is the preferred starch. I find potato would be a little more dense.
Okay.
So are you trying to make things less sticky in which sense?
Well, I just noticed you used the tapioca in terms of sticky with the pizza dough.
Oh, I see what you're saying. For something like that, you can use potato or tapioca because it's just such a small amount. In terms of baking or cooking with it, I prefer the tapioca. I actually had to substitute potato for tapioca one day because I could not find tapioca in the stores. It was out everywhere. And it was a little different in terms of how the end product came out. But for just dusting like that, you can use either one. But for baking in larger quantities, I prefer the tapioca over potato.
Okay.
Marnay. Did you have a question?
So I looked at that cheese because I did find it in Alec, but and then I also found some mozzarella goat cheese.
Okay.
Now, which would be, I mean, to be honest with you, the Daya, is that how you say it?
Yeah.
The mozzarella was like gray. I mean, and I thought, oh, is this gonna melt?
It shouldn't be gray.
Yeah, it was gray.
Oh, you mean after you melted it? It looked gray?
No, in the bag, it looked gray.
Ooh. I think that might have been bad then.
Yeah.
It's not, I do have that in the fridge too, but that's not, it should be a white.
No, it was not white. And I thought, nah,
Don't use it.
look good. So I didn't buy it. And then at the co-op, I found the goat mozzarella, but it was really, really expensive.
Yeah.
And so that's why I was just wondering if that Daiwa is that, if that's how it was supposed to look or what.
No, it's not supposed to be gray. So
Okay.
you did the right thing by walking away. Pecorino is a lot cheaper. So especially because, I mean, you just have to grate it yourself, but that wedge is only a couple dollars and that goes a long ways.
Yeah, I have that.
Because the other thing too with pecorino I forgot to mention is it actually has a couple other really positive nutritional aspects. It's high in butyrate. So butyrate is the preferred fuel for our colon. So to keep our colon healthy, we need to have butyrate sources in our diet, and that does come primarily from dairy. So again, if we can't do cow dairy, butyrate is a really nice source to add. And the other thing is it's high in a type of fat called conjugated linoleic acid, which is beneficial for fat burning. So that's another perk to that in regards to the support. Any other questions? Let's do a thumbs up. Cindi. We've got to unmute.
Yep. You mentioned a granola, Purely Elizabeth. I've used some of the cereals in the past, so I was wondering which Purely Elizabeth you were referring to.
This one will say specifically, there's not very many, so you do have to look close. So it says, do you see where it says grain-free?
Yeah.
So it does have to say grain-free, otherwise it's a traditional granola.
Right.
This is just organic sunflower seeds, cashews, pumpkin seeds, coconut sugar, raw virgin coconut oil, coconut flakes, almond flour, chia seeds, cashew butter, hemp seeds, vanilla, cinnamon, and salt. But again, like I said,
I was hoping I could see Julie flip that the pizza dough. You had it nicely rolled out on the parchment paper, and I thought, no, how is she going to get it from the
Yeah, that was, as I said, this is a recipe I found online. And so when I was reading through it and attempting it the first time, I thought, this is going to be interesting. How am I going to flip this? And I did. I had to take like a baking pan, put it on top, flip it over. And I thought, this is ridiculous. This is not going to be convenient or smart or anything. So that's why I came up with this other way, which was to me a lot easier. So I'm sorry to disappoint you. You didn't see me flip the dough, but.
Does it fall apart easily as you're flipping it? Can it? I mean.
No, not at all.
Oh, good. Okay.
It does hold together. And as I said, even if it did tear a little bit, it has a lot of moisture in it, so it easily repairs itself. As I said, I rarely find a recipe. I haven't found a recipe online that works the first time. I was amazed. They'll probably never happen again. So I'm very grateful that this one was as good as it is.
Good. Thank you.
Julie, do you have a question?
I just wanted to clarify, but you baked it on the parchment paper, right?
Yes.
You didn't. Okay, because that's what I've done with like a cauliflower crust, and because those are really hard to work with, and I just left it on the parchment paper and it worked just fine. It gets a little brown around the edges, but.
Yeah, parchment paper is a wonderful, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say the paper itself gets a little like it's browning. But yeah.
Yeah, the parchment paper is a wonderful tool to use, especially for like gluten-free doughs that are a little more tacky, so it doesn't stick. I don't use cooking spray or anything like that, so I use parchment paper as a barrier, and the product just comes off a lot easier, and it bakes very evenly too. So if the paper turns brown, it's not an issue.
Excellent. Did you have another question, Julie?
I do. I was going to ask, Julie, do you ever bake your pancakes? You know how you can like bake bacon? Do you bake your pancakes ever?
No, I haven't done that yet.
Okay.
Is that something you do?
There's a recipe. I want to say a Mark Hyman recipe, like a lemon blueberry pancake. Excellent recipe. Could not flip them on the griddle. And so I just ended up throwing it like in a 9x9 pan and then cutting them like bars, but bigger than bars, you know, like 3x3s or something. And then,
that's interesting.
So I was just curious if you've ever tried that, and then just dress it like you would. And his, you know, of course, you're putting the lemon in, and then you're sprinkling the lemon rind on top. you know, and the blueberries are already in it, but I think you throw a few more blueberries on top as well when you serve it. But that's how I've gotten over the frustration of all these recipes that are really hard to come up with the right consistency to be able to flip them. And I have a clay dish. It's a Pampered Chef.
Nice.
That I do it in. I think that bakes a little differently than a regular metal.
It would.
Yeah, I'll have to try baking. I haven't done that yet, so it's a really interesting way of dealing with that. Yeah, a lot of the issues is these pancakes do tend to stick a lot easier, and that's always been the challenge. Is, you know, how do you make it not stick? How do you still keep that shape without losing texture? You still, it's light, it's not dense or anything like that. And that's always a challenge that we're always trying to improve upon. I'd love to see that recipe at some point, if you don't mind, and I'd love to try that.
Oh yeah, it's in his book that came out last October.
Yeah, what was his name again?
Dr. Mark Hyman.
Okay.
Hyman.
Perfect. I'll take a look at that. I'm curious.
Nice. Any other questions, as we're right at 7 o'clock? So I want to respect everyone's time. So if no other questions, you can certainly email us if you have questions after this. And otherwise, we will be posting this along with the recipes eventually on the website, as well as our YouTube channel. So you can always access it afterwards and share it with others that you think might be interested as well. We thank you guys so much for coming and being here.
Yes, thank you.
So thank you so much. Happy cooking and baking, and let us know what you end up doing with your recipes.
Yeah, we'd love to hear about it.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.